Hey guys, today I'm going to be going over my healing build for Trials in the Elder Scrolls Online. A lot of people ask me what it is I'm running. This is just what I've found to work best for me. To jump right into things, I prefer an Argonian for a race because of the passives. This is nice, the max health. Because you have to spec into health anyways to get your health above, I prefer to have my health over 18k. I like 18.2k. You don't need to put as many attribute points into health, and you don't need to run as many tri-stat glyphs on your body pieces. You do 5% extra healing, which is great, and this passive makes your potions restore a lot more. Like, this is really strong. A lot of people prefer a Breton or a High Elf to an Argonian, which is fine. They all do almost like the exact same thing. So like the Breton and the High Elf both get 10% bonus Magicka. The difference between them is the Breton gets 3% cost reduction, while the Altmer has 9% more regen. I believe the 9% more regen is better than the 3% cost reduction, because the 3% cost reduction on a Breton is actually... So like I run these spell cost reduction glyphs on my rings. 3% on skills that are really going to eat up your Magicka, like the orbs in Breath of Life, is actually less than what a cost reduction glyph will provide, whereas the Altmer's regen passive is greater than a regen glyph, assuming your regen is over 1700, which it should be. That's my logic for that. And the 10% max Magicka, once you've spec'd into health on a Breton and a Altmer, which you have to do because the Argonian gets 9% more health, the 5% healing that you do will beat out the extra Magicka. So on my Argonian, I run 57 points into Magicka and 7 points into health. This is because I switch the food that I run a lot. I've created this build so that I can change the food that I run on the fly. I will change my gear a lot depending on the situation. For armor, you always want to have on 5-piece spell power gear. Both healers in the group should be running this. It's very strong. You should always have it on. One healer will be running Mending, and the other healer will be running Worm Cult for sustain. I run Tri-Stat enchants on my chest and legs to boost my health and also give me a little extra stamina, which is good in Halls of Fabrication. On races not an Argonian, I will put one on my hat as well. And these are infused pieces, so you get a little bit more out of the glyph. The rest of my pieces are divines, and they have Magicka enchants on them. For jewelry, I run 1 regen glyph and 2 cost reduction glyphs. I actually find that my sustain is better with the cost reduction. I think a lot of this is, with an Argonian, your playstyle kind of allows you to dump all of your Magicka to an extent between your potions, because your potions restore so much you can kind of heavy attack and use one and it'll bring you back up. For staffs, I use master staffs. I use a powered resto. Precise is also really good, but I actually don't have one. And I don't have a master precise staff, so I just run powered, and powered got buffed anyway. This also gives you 1000 Magicka. For back bar, I run a master staff as well. I run decisive to get a little extra ulti regen, so when I swap bars I can light attack and then do whatever I'm gonna do. The trait on your back bar is not nearly as important as the trait on your front bar. If you don't have master staffs, you can run a set staff, or 2 set staffs, and then run 1-piece monster helm. So the main thing about my build that is the most important thing for me is that it allows me to swap out my food and gear while still having like healthy numbers. So the main setup that I run, 2 Tri-Stat glyphs and Witch Mother's Potent Brew. This gives a lot of recovery. This is what my recovery is usually at for most things. This amount of health is fine. The only time that I don't run this consistently is Hall's hard mode. On the last boss, I will switch to my other setup, which is buy stat food. This basically just gives me a lot more health and a little bit more magicka so that my heals hit harder and I'm a little tankier. There's a lot of outgoing damage in that fight, so it's good to have a little extra survivability. It is at the cost of some regen though, so do note that with this setup you're going to have to heavy attack. You have to be careful with your resources because your regen is on the lower side. If also, what you could do is if you're having a hard time with the low regen, you could swap out your 2 recovery or your 2 cost reduction rings for regen rings, and that will boost your recovery back up. However, your skills are going to be a little more expensive. The last setup I have is I replace my tri-stat pieces with just regular infused magicka pieces. This increases your magicka a lot, but it brings your health back down, and this is with the buy stat food rather than the witch mothers. So your regen is going to be low. Everything else for this is the same. My staffs are the same. The other divine's body pieces are the same. Moving on to skills, my bar setups are pretty standard. There are things you should always have on, like Healing Springs, Combat Prayer, and Breath of Life. Inner Light I try to never take off just because of the magicka it gives as well as the crit. I only take this off for boss 1 in halls when I need to purge. Like I will replace this with purge for that. Energy Orb by front bar just so that it's easier to weave them, particularly in executes because it heals so much. It takes every half a second while this only takes once a second. So it's good to like weave your heals together. That's the only reason why I have it front barred is because like sometimes it's hard to bar swap. If you're in execute and you're trying to just keep people alive, you can just pop out an orb rather than having to bar swap and do it. My back bar is also pretty standard. I run shards on my back bar, which restores magicka and stamina. Elemental drain, which is really important. Technically only one healer in the group needs to run this, but if you're having a hard time keeping it up 100%, there's nothing wrong with having both run it. Extended Ritual. This sometimes gets swapped out for a Dawn's Wrath ability if there isn't a Templar DPS in your group. Power of the Light is hard to run in halls, by the way. Just as like a side note, because there's so much you have to block and break free, and so I usually run the other morph, the Purifying Light one. I just don't have it morphed at the moment. If you don't want to morph it back because you run this a lot, then you can just use this one. This is the next cheapest. If you're using it just to get the minor sorcery buff, you only have to use it every 20 seconds. So what I usually do is I'll like put this on my bar, and then when I refresh Ellie Drain, I'll refresh the Dawn's Wrath ability. Channeled Focus gives you resistances and magicka back. This spot is a flex spot for the most part. I run Purge. If I don't need to run Purge, I can put on a shield, I can put on Lightning Wall, and that's pretty much it for my main skills. So for ultimates, I usually front bar Nova because if I'm in a situation where I have to Nova, like it's an execute or Hall's hard mode execute, I don't want to run the risk of accidentally using Horn in execute, so I will just front bar it. Most of the time though, I do double bar Warhorn just to prevent the mistakes. Horn is what you're going to be using 99% of the time. So that's pretty much it, guys, for my setup for my healer. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments or send me a message. I'm working on documenting my builds on my website, which is just a Tumblr website right now, but hopefully I can get it updated pretty soon to look a lot better. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. Thanks for watching.